alterations and rewriting the word as intended. I noticed a similar pattern in John Matthew Hurl's handwriting in combination with consistent patterns of communicating partial or incomplete thoughts, ideas, and messages, patterns, or excessive repetition as a form of overcompensating for an inability to communicate, and even giving a specified warning of death and then describing the warning in such an indirect, vague, and repetitive manner that he's literally incapable of articulating a complete train of thought or message that shared identical patterns to what I'm experiencing from a discrete and subtle techniques. Technique utilizing hypnosis to only partially inhibit speech and repress memory as opposed to a complete inhibition of speech, which is too noticeable. Wow, the hypnosis is really inhibiting me. I don't know if you almost noticed if you noticed how I almost snapped my fingers. That was a post-hypnotic suggestion, but I noticed it. The method specifically elicited indirect, confusing, vague, repetitive, prolonged, fragmented, and incomplete communication patterns which inhibit understanding of incomprehension to imitate the presentation of mental illness similar to gaslighting, which was a simultaneous method to conceal the presentation of post-hypnotic suggestion. This was also done by phrasing post-hypnotic suggestions in the form of metaphors that were very convicting forms of evidence if explained in detail, but the hypnosis inhibited my speech and repressed my memory to the extent I would only be able to explain a portion of the metaphor at a time, so that it wouldn't make sense. And then we're going to go ahead and get into a little bit more detail here. So I have some, this is a handwriting analysis of my own handwriting, and I'm actually missing a sticky note. That's interesting. I get that. But we'll get to it later, I guess. Sorry, my back. Ow. Anyways, not the most important sticky note, but the letter R in the word murder is bold, distracting attention away from the word murder. Letter C in conceal in the beginning is also bold, drawing any attention away from the word murder that isn't already drawn away by the letter R in bold. And then the bolded letter R attracts attention to the next word in the sentence because we don't read backwards. So then you're naturally compelled to be forced to read forward from read left to right instead of right to left. And then the bolded letter C is an outlier that attracts attention away from murder and draws it towards the baseline below because reading the letter C requires attention to be drawn to the bottom of the letter. And as you can see here, so the letter C does protrude up above the baseline, consuming a portion of the baseline, consuming a portion of the baseline from the word murder, and then in order to be able to read it, you have to bring your attention back down to the bottom of the letter where you would naturally want to read. And it looks like there's even like an arrow that's pointing like, yeah, you read that way, right? Alright, well, anyways, there's that for you. Number 3, basics. A stick figure with dreadlocks and the letter H in my name, Matthew. And you can see here I have a stick figure in my name, and it looks like he has dreadlocks or something coming out of his head. And then a second stick figure in the letter N in the word investigate. And you can see that's right above my head, right? And it's right there. So anyways, there's that. Ow, ow, ow. Ow, okay. So, of course, this is not a coincidence because this is a little bit too much to be a coincidence. I also want to point out that drawings as a whole were just a distraction from the writing itself. And let me see. There we go. There's something. This was done to distract attention from Donald Trump and put it towards Billie Eilish, just like the drawing drew attention towards concealing evidence and took it away from murder. Moving on, I also have more examples here. Let's see. So, pattern interrupt, distracting conscious awareness, and writing entirely different words than intended. And then I'll go ahead and show you here. So, I'm getting really tired now. This video is going to indicate various alterations in patterns. And I wrote in handwriting, but I was supposed to write identified. So I crossed that one out, right? I mean, very simple. It's still very legible, right? I mean, in comparison to drawing multiple horizontal lines, right? So identified, and then I was supposed to write in handwriting, but then I started writing the word writing, so then I had to cross that out, and then I have hand ring, which is not a word, and I actually even had it, when I wrote this, it was filmed on camera as well, and let's see, I also, so that was 3 in one sentence, and then there's a fourth example, where I wrote handwrite instead of handwriting, trying to point out the correction or the mistake, and let's see, so it also looks very similar to how this points out the mistakes in the alterations in signatures. So you can see the first 2, there's some alterations. There's 2 alterations, and the second 2 there are 4 alterations. And there are several alterations in that sample. I mean, 4 in one sentence. So that's that's the concept here. Is it's, well, I mean, 3 in one sentence, and then 1 even trying to just point out the mistake, which I'm not entirely sure why that was even done. It wasn't exactly a very logical or rational method to conceal evidence by any means. But moving on, I also have this one here, and then in the word feelings, so the last 2 letters, G and S, you can see here are practically illegible, and this was a method and much more bolder than the rest of the word as well. And basically, this was done intentionally with a hypnosis, right? In order to force me, in order to decrease resistance to creating a drawing, because it would make the page look better, right? So anyways, there's that. Yeah. And then I also have some pictures here. Well, I mean, this I'll go over in another video. So there's that. Alright, and then, let's see. Also in his handwriting here, and this is going to be John Matthew Hurls that we're referencing. That's where that was. Okay. Great. I'm going to try to go to bed here very soon because I'm finally feeling tired. Or at least starting to feel tired. But, yeah, I feel tired. Okay. So, I was also discussing here, and this is where the underlining really starts to tie in, right? Alright, so, there's a little bit more to this than just that as well. I mean, there are 3 pages where he has, this page, he has a word crossed out, rewritten it, right? And I mean, that's a pattern that I had in my handwriting. Now, mine was much more extreme, of course. Here is some info I need you to know. If you don't take it seriously, you will die. And he says, life comes from growth, right?
without growth, you would sit in limbo or degenerate. You cannot have stable growth without balance or a foundation, which ultimately is you moving straight forward in your desire and becoming that through actions, and I believe that says intent or trust. You desire life, I already know, but while I can't read what that word says, might be coveted because humans' love is fake. It's better to be better, and you will find much better than gold for your work and effort. So, what this means is it's basically like I was stating, he had a complete inability to articulate himself. He really talked around in a circle and did not send a direct message indicating any form of warning exactly. But he also did not make any direct threat in any of the letters here as well, which is something that stood out profoundly to me. And because here is some info for you to know. Info I need you to know. If you don't take it seriously, you will die. Well, I mean, that could actually also be a warning as well instead of a death threat, and that's what I'm pointing out, because what I noticed with my handwriting, and also this is just like the pattern in which he describes a concept is indirect, repetitive, vague, and poorly descriptive. So it seems as if he is experiencing a communication issue while he's attempting to write, and I was experiencing the exact same thing. That's why I've I already have 5 videos up on YouTube that are specifically about just my ability. Sorry about that, to speak being inhibited. And then before I was even able to make this video successfully either, and I'm probably still gonna have to remake it. But regardless of such, again, please watch my video Hypnosis, Abuse, and Speech Inhibition. I explain all the nitty-gritty details on that. But regardless, so what it seems like it happened to me was he had a very specific train of thought that was going in a very specified direction that would have probably been much more logical, sensical, and sent a completely different message. Although he underlines, if you don't take it seriously, you will die. So when he underlined that, with that, obviously, when you underline something, you underline after you finish, after you write the words. You don't underline before and then write on top of the underline. So when he did that, that allows a distraction to be cued while he's underlining, just long enough to be able to repress his memory of whatever subject or concept he was really attempting to fully describe, or warning he was even trying to describe, because this is a very serious context, and you can see that it's it's not something, like, this is not the type of statement that you just make without really having a specified message or purpose for making, right? So he ends up talking in circles. Basically, he talks very vaguely, and has a poor ability to articulate or describe what he's attempting to describe. And especially at the end, it's better to be better, and you will find much better than gold for your work and effort. And that is very, very poorly descriptive, I would say. It's overly repetitive, using the same word to describe the word itself, if that makes sense. So describing the word better by using the word better, instead of, say for example, using the word improved to describe the word better, or a variety of different words that would be able to describe that, just depending on the context, right? Anyways, so basically, this is it's the same type of pattern that I would notice in my handwriting. Is I would need some type of distraction, and then I would, so I would have a distraction cued, and then I would be hypnotized to have my memory repressed of whatever I was thinking about, like, say, for example, the train of thought that I was on. And then, of course, my speech patterns and thought patterns would be relatively limited to, the same type of pattern where he's talking in circles, being poor, with a poor capability of being able to explain himself. So that's what I'm noticing here. I spent quite a bit of time just looking into it and everything along those lines, and then on there's also some drawings that he draws, which just stands out a lot. Let's see, the drawings that he draws are, and also the content. It has a lot of. Overall, like, if you don't understand the context for the content, then it's gonna be it does directly look like threats of death, but he doesn't make any direct threat of death. Most of what he's saying, and especially with the aspect where he is asking her to shelter, and he's offering shelter him, and he's asking her for he's offering to protect her. That is not a common thing to do when you're threatening to kill somebody. It's just like illogical, counterproductive. Unless you really have it deliberately, elaborately planned out to gain their trust. But regardless, these pictures are also just unusual, right? There's a large amount of suspicion regarding whether or not he actually had any intention or actually made any direct, any intended to make any form of threat towards her safety, because it seems as if, especially based off of the other forms of evidence that I've collected, that he was under the influence of hypnosis, and definitely very, very specific here. But with this, right, it seemed as if he had the focal dystonia when he was writing right there. I wanted to point that out as well. So when I was describing the vocabulary aspect, though, that's something that would that could very easily lead to writing like this. That is, talking around in circles. It's kind of like using a color to describe a color, right? Like, that blue is very blue, that red is very red, right? It doesn't help to describe anything better, right? So anyways, it definitely could have been described more adequately, and that is the pattern that I'm seeing here, is just indication that he probably was inhibited from being able to articulate properly. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. I'm going to go ahead and get this uploaded on the internet as well, and I'm probably going to try to go to bed. So anyways, have a good night, and thanks for watching.